I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I can ask Mr. Kiley to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I ask us all to remain standing. Fairfield lost really one of our iconic personalities recently in the form of Jean Harrison. Jean was not only Fairfield of the Year just a couple of years ago, she was also the lady that has painted all the fire hydrants around town and led that whole initiative. Did it for our 350th anniversary, brought it back again for our 375th, and I think for the bicentennial too. But Jean has an infectious smile. Her enthusiasm is just amazing. I am, as Betsy Brown said in one of the write-ups, that she's going to miss Jean's phone calls, and I certainly am too. So if we could all have a moment of silence on her behalf, unless my colleagues wanted to add something to that.
I would like to add, since I was a little kid, I remember going over to Jean's house. Jean actually gave our family our first dog growing up, and she used to raise these little cute Havanese dogs, so I'll always be in debt for the memories I have. She will be severely missed by the Timniak family, and again, like you said, an iconic figure in Fairfield for a very long time. And I hope the fire hydrant tradition continues for our next 25-year anniversary.
Fantastic. Absolutely agree. Jean has been just a pleasure to get to know over the years, and what she has done for our town is unforgettable. So,
Thank you. Moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. All right, this is the December 6th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. The next item up on our agenda is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting of November 15th. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
second.
Any discussion or edits to the minutes?
No.
I'm all set with them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, next item up. We've got a few moments of recognition here, so we're going to take these one at a time. It's been great to see the town departments and people recognized, and I wanted to make sure that we brought them before the Board of Selectmen, because too often I think we take the excellent service we get here in Fairfield for granted, and I want to make sure that it's appropriately recognized by all involved. So, first off, in recognition of the town of Fairfield receiving the 2017 Municipal Excellence Award from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, or CCM, for the Department of Public Works Zero Net Energy Facility Project. I'm going to just jump right to Mr. Bowman and ask if you can come up and fill us in on that.
Again, it's really all part of sustainability. With asset and financial management, affordability, and environmental impact are all crucial for a successful sustainability program. And that's what this project really is. It'll be affordable as 100% of all the town costs, our capital operations, maintenance are offset by savings from on-site green power, new energy efficient equipment, preventive maintenance, and building energy management technology. So for 20 years, there's no cost to this project. Environmental impact is great because there's a reduction of greenhouse gases, criteria pollutants, and carbon emissions. What do we do? Well, there's four key elements to the plan. The first was hardening. We had the $3.5 million grant to surround the plant with a dike to protect it to up to a 500-year flood, including pumps to make sure the rainwater that's in it gets pumped out. So now the whole area is protected from the flooding. The second was green power generation. We received 5 solar power purchase agreements with 5 different facilities, 2 on the canine shelter, 1 in conservation, 1 at the WPCA, and a new one will be put on the fire training center. Those 20-year agreements will save almost 1,600,000 kilowatts a year and $200,000 a year. Second part of that is the fuel cell. which will save $60,000 in electrical costs, but almost $400,000 in natural gas costs versus what we're doing now with the microturbines, because they're taking the full risk of natural gas. We're paying for it in this one. That'll produce 4 million kilowatt hours of electricity annually. The third is a combined heat and power generator will be installed using the waste methane from the treatment plant itself, which will produce both heat for the plant and electricity, with saving about $125,000 a year and another $650,000 in electric savings. The third thing have to do was energy management. In cooperation with UI, which we had a number of plans, we already had 5 projects down there. We'll have a few more, which will wind up saving another million kilowatt hours of electricity and $190,000. And lastly, a microgrid is being installed with the aid of a $2.5 million grant from HUD. That will ensure that all the buildings, including conservation, animal control, fire training, and all the WPCF buildings, will have power when the grid is down. Including in that is a new 1,000 kW natural gas generator, which will function just in case the green power we have isn't sufficient to run everything. There's a backup to the backup. And then when the grid is operational, the microgrid will automatically choose the greenest power first. So the first power being used will be from the PV, the solar. The second would be from the fuel cell. The third would be from combined heat and power. And only we would buy UI power if we absolutely needed it at that point. So that's basically, in 2 minutes, the project.
If I can just clarify 2 points, this is in listening to that. One, this is about net zero energy use.
All right, I forgot to mention the key part. The end result of that is the town will not be buying any more power and probably no more natural gas for heating purposes on that facility for the next 20 years. I mean, that's the key to it.
And that's one of our largest energy consumption facilities.
It is the largest. It uses more power than all the rest of the town buildings combined.
Yeah. Now, you ran through some of those numbers quickly, so I heard $200,000 at one component, $600,000 another, $190,000
Yeah.
later. We're talking about $1 million in savings per
Right.
year.
Yep.
That's
Amazing.
just literally at the CCM convention when that was announced. You could hear the audience, and these are all other municipal CEOs, first selectmen and mayors. You could hear the audience gasp. They couldn't believe that we were saving that much money and having that kind of impact on our energy bills, but also for our taxpayers. They were just floored.
There's other things I didn't mention. For example, the fuel cell also provides waste heat. And they've offered to give us that waste heat for free to heat the compost building. The old fuel cell did that, but it didn't do it enough. This has a lot more heat. The point is, in rebuilding the treatment plant, we'd have to put a $40,000 boiler in there and spend about $65,000 on natural gas to keep it heated. The waste heat will do that, so it's another cost avoider, which I didn't even mention. So there's more little things.
Any other
over
cost avoidance you didn't mention?
I don't think so.
Don't hold back yet.
Yeah.
Lay it on
Forgot
us.
that one.
All right, any comments from my colleagues?
Fantastic job. Again, I've been a big fan of all this energy savings we've had over the last couple of years. I know, Ed, you're a leader throughout the state in this, and I was also at that CCM conference. I heard the gasp in the room when the numbers were announced. It was quite impressive, and I'm proud to say that I know Fairfield's definitely becoming the model for the rest of the state to follow, and that's because of the hard work and the commitment we've had as a town to support this. Thank you.
Mr. Kylie?
Mr. Bowman, thank you again for coming before us with another wonderful cost savings project. It's about sustainability, it's about savings, it's about safety, right?
Yep.
We've safeguarded that facility as well, and we're heating other buildings and doing things at net zero cost. As Mr. Timiak just said, we are the leader in the state in these areas, and that is a direct reflection on you and your department and the hard work you've done for many, many years. Thank you.
It's also a direct reflection on the political support you get for these things. A lot of municipalities, they do not get that support. We've always got it from the Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM, and that's important.
No, Ed, thank you again. You've been certainly the leader in driving this, and when you talk about being a town that's leading the state, not only is it because of the awards, but if I can reference one of the local municipal debates on Channel 12 during the recent campaign, I won't get into which town, but when the question was raised by the moderator, give us some ideas on what you do to save money in our town, the reference was, well, like Fairfield, we could be saving money in this area. And I thought that was so excited that we were named by another town as something to look up to, and they are definitely impressed with the economies that are bringing back and how we're saving taxpayers' money in going through this. And when you talk about we're not saving it for 1 year, this is every year for 20 years.
Right.
So there are very few projects we've done, and we added up at least $1 million in savings. There are very few projects we've done that are going to save us $20 million over the next 20 years.
That's correct.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, some more special recognition. The Town of Fairfield Public Works Department. Again. Oh, Ed, your plaque. After that. There we go.
We're keeping that plaque in the collection, Robert, so people can see it.
All right. We'll do that. We'll keep it
We'll
right
see
up
it in
here.
my office.
We'll keep it right up here for now.
There you go.
But, so next up, the Town of Fairfield Public Works Department receiving the 2017 Distinguished Service Award from the Connecticut Association of Street and Highway Officials, or CASHO. Mr. Michelangelo, would you come up and fill us in on this recognition?
Thank you. Joseph Michelangelo, Director of Public Works. On November 18th, the Public Works Department was presented by an organization, CASHO, with the Distinguished Municipal Service Award. CASHO issues 3 such awards. They issue an award for a contractor, for an engineering firm, and a municipality, and we were awarded this year, the first time the community has ever received it. CASHO, just a little bit, it's been around for about 75 years. It's the primary public works organization in Connecticut, solely Connecticut-based. And one of the things I like about the organization, it's not just for directors like me and superintendents like Scott Bartlett, but it truly affects every one of our employees, from ourselves to our snowplow drivers to our laborers. It's really a grassroots organization from top to bottom. Everybody benefits from it. Some of the items that I could highlight for the reasons why we were selected, they told us in our presentation. Scott made a presentation on our program, on our pavement management program, maintenance program, which was very impressive, not just to the board, but to the entire CASHO community. We also made a presentation on a lot of the efforts we're making for our resiliency post-Storm Sandy. Another item which really impressed the organization was the sheer amount of activities we're involved in. I've always said that, I've worked in public works organizations for 25 years before I came here, and the number of activities we're involved in, not just roads, but buildings, beaches, marinas, is much more than any town gets involved in. And another thing that sort of definitely sets us apart from traditional public works organizations, is our involvement in the communities. We get involved in the road races, the parades, the Pink Pledge. They're great. We love being involved in them, but it's sort of not typical that public works organizations are involved with. So we, like I said, on November 18th, we presented the award at the annual banquet, and it was a great experience.
Wow, great. Well, congratulations. Any comments from my colleagues?
Sure, please. Congratulations to you and your entire department. An award like this is a reflection of the entire organization from top to bottom, what you do on a daily basis, the efforts you make, the jobs that you get done. And you touched on something that's very, very near and dear to me, which is the other projects that you help out on that are above and beyond your normal duties and responsibilities, helping out with building projects, with school events, with other events around town, things that could easily be outside your scope. But you guys don't have a scope. You guys do everything, and we thank you very much.
No, it's congratulations on the award. CASHO's been around for a long time. To get on the list of award winners for municipalities is quite impressive. Public Works is the catch-all for the town and is always the first person called when something needs to be fixed, cleaned up, a tree fell, but more importantly, like you mentioned, the Pink Pledge, the extras we do to make Fairfield a community. So congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
Again, congratulations. If I have to pick an iconic shot for me of our DPW guys, it's the pink T-shirt shot with all you guys lined up. That coupled with the pink dump truck that we used in the as part of the Pink Pledge this past year, I think were superb. but it also, I think it's a statement and a testament to how much your team goes above and beyond and cares about the town. And I think that's superb. We saw it during Storm Sandy, we saw it during Storm Nemo, but you bring it every day. And so thank you very much, and please convey that to your whole team.
Thank you. And I'll let Scott collect the hardware and bring it back to the garage.
Oh, yes, we got a plaque. Wow. Is that because you can't carry it so heavy?
Well, it'll be housed with the garage.
Delegation.
All right, Joe, thank you, and congratulations again. Next up, from the Water Pollution Control Facility, Lab Manager Danielle Morrison received the 2017 Water Environment Federation Laboratory Analyst. Sorry, that's a lot to get out. Are there business cards with big enough for that title? The Water Environment Federation Laboratory Analyst Excellence Award from the New England Water Environment Association. One, Danielle, congratulations, and will you please come up and fill us in on your duties and responsibilities and show us how big that business card is.
Okay, so I'm Danielle Morrison, and I am the chemist and lab manager at our water pollution control facility. And we analyze our water streams from influent through the effluent to make sure everything that we're treating, which is approximately 9 million gallons per day of wastewater, and we make sure that that water is safe to discharge to Long Island Sound. And it's not just me, it is a whole team of us. There's one other analyst who helps me every day in collecting samples and running analyses, and then we take those results and we make suggestions on things that we can do to improve the plant process and to make it work more efficiently. And that's where the rest of the crew comes in, all of our other operations folks who are on the front lines every day. We talk a lot, communicate about everything that we see in the lab and in the plant, and then we collaborate and put our minds together to see how we can make things work better. And there's a great team effort with the analysts, the operators, and management. We work very well together, and we produce a good quality effluent. And it's all of us. It's not just me in the lab. So I'm very honored to receive this award.
Obviously, congratulations. Any comments from my colleagues?
I think you just highlighted something for the viewers at home, which many people aren't aware actually occurs. But I'm sure they're thrilled right now that we're receiving an award for this very thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work, and congratulations to you and your entire team. And you guys do a wonderful job. 9 million gallons a day? Is that
Yes,
what you said?
That's correct.
That is an amazing amount of wastewater that gets treated and safeguarded and properly distributed back out to the Sound. Amazing work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure having a tour of the facility back a couple years when I did. My first tour of a water treatment facility was back when I was in college in Princeton, New Jersey. Got a chance to go through that facility, and so it's gone. So I've got at least another point of reference in terms of looking when I talk about what ours is. But I've got to tell you, one of the things I would guess that many of our residents take our water treatment facility and the work that you do and the whole team down there for granted. Because it's literally on the back end of things. But if we're going to make a commitment to the environment, if we're going to make a commitment to keeping Long Island Sound a valuable resource, not only for us, but for the state of Connecticut and for the state of New York that shares part of that body of water, what you're doing is extremely important. And so there's a lot of talk about that, but you're literally where the rubber meets the road in terms of delivering on that promise. So thank you, not only from this generation of Fairfielders, but the next generation of Fairfielders.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Again, I think that too often, when you're in a town that runs as well as Fairfield, it's easy to take things for granted. And I wanted to use today's recognition on a number of areas to make sure that we don't take the work that our employees do, but more importantly, the high-quality work that our employees do for granted. So thank you for doing that, and we'll, as a board, I think I can admit that we'll all try and remind the residents of the quality effort that you all put in. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Yes, Dan, you don't have to stay, Danielle. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Next item up are some resignations, and these are for information only. From the Conservation Commission, Charles Rowan, 8 Philemon Street, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19 as an alternate. His resignation date was December 1st, and he's moving up from an alternate to a full member. B, on the Fire Commission, Francis O'Reilly, Republican, 869 Valley Road, at a term of 11/15 to 11/20. His resignation date was November 14th, 2017, and he was elected to a member of the Representative Town Meeting, the RTM. Item C, Flood and Erosion Control Board. Frank Batiste, Republican, 15 Osborne Place, for a term of 11/16 to 11/21. His resignation date was November 20, 2017, and he also is a newly elected member to the Representative Town Meeting. Next up, D, Parks and Recreation Commission. Doreen Herron, Republican, 53 Forest Avenue, for a term of 11/13 to 11/18. Her resignation date was November 20, 2017, and she also was elected to the Representative Town Meeting. So next up, these are first selectman appointments, and this is for information only. To the Conservation Commission, Nelson North, Republican, 35 Barbary Road, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19 as an alternate, and this is to fill the vacancy created by Charles Rowan, who moved from alternate to full member. And the appointment date was December 1st, 2017. Item 7, appointments. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments. For the Land Acquisition Commission, Robert Daly, Republican, 587 Shrub Oak Lane, for a term of 11/17 to 11/21, and this is to fill a vacancy for Ian Balan, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept? A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
And congratulations on your here. Thank you for stepping up and willing to help out the town.
Again, thank you for volunteering. You have a great resume and background, and I'm sure you'll be a valued asset to the commission. Thank you.
You know, we talk time and time again about how many volunteers are really necessary to run Fairfield and deliver the high-quality service that we have. I want to thank you for volunteering that time and sharing your expertise with us in making that commitment. Any further discussion?
No.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none. Back to the board. All in favor? Aye. Congratulations, and thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Next up, to approve Board of Selectmen meeting dates for calendar year 2018. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? I think there were some comments on specific dates.
There
Yes.
was a couple dates I wanted to highlight or flag, maybe we change.
Yep.
April 18th, I believe that's the week of school break, spring break. And November 21st, I believe that's also a date in conflict.
All right. What I'd suggest is that we go ahead and vote for these dates. Sheila, if you could make sure that we get those 2 dates to Jen Carpenter, so we can follow up with the board members on alternative dates. And I believe if we do that early enough, certainly we can always have a special meeting, so there's no real problem, but I think if we do it early enough, they become regular meetings.
Sure.
If that's okay, but
That's
that way we
great.
meet our obligation of setting a calendar today. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Any other discussion or edits?
At the moment, no.
No comment from the public. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and Sheila, if you just break those out so we make sure that Jen can take action on those right away. And Chris, thank you for catching those. Next item up, to approve the budget meeting dates for calendar year 2018. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right, this item is before us. I do want to relate from the Board of Finance discussion last night. There were some discussion there that the Board of Finance would like to possibly change the budget process and maybe even separate out the Board of Selectmen meetings and vote from the Board of Finance meetings and vote. They haven't, they referenced that. They're supposed to have their budget committee get together with me, and I will keep you both informed
Okay.
as to what's happening there. I believe, at least as I remember the charter, the budget approval schedule is subject to the Board of Finance approval. So they have a lot of discretion in terms of how they look at that. And so anyway, I will keep you updated on that. I would suggest again that what we do for now is approve this, because that's the best available information we have. And if changes come up, and if they're going to be relevant this year, I'll let you know. They may not be.
Right.
And I'm not sure exactly what the changes are.
All right.
So,
Make a motion to approve.
all right, a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
And then I think we need, no, I think that covered A and B, right?
I believe.
I'm good with it. Yes.
That works for me.
Right.
Bird Gardens Advisory Committee, to hear, consider, and act upon modifications to the Bird Gardens Advisory Committee charge. Is there someone here to take us through it? Yes, please.
Hi.
If you'd please come up to the podium.
Sure. I didn't expect to actually do this, but sure. Laura Pisano.
Aye.
With,
If you could just repeat that from the microphone
Laura
so that
Pisano.
all the folks at home can hear that.
Yeah, hey. I'm chair of the Bird Gardens Advisory Committee, and I'm here to request your approval of our amended charge. Actually, the First Selectman office did recommend that we stagger our terms. So, and they gave us the words to do it. So
Right.
we put those in there, and I just ask that you approve that. And I also included a vice president. We had a chair, or vice chairman. We have a chairman, and I need some help. And I'd like to mentor somebody. So our committee approved the vice chair position. So now we would have chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Good.
So,
Did we move and second this yet, Sheila?
No.
I'll move item 10.
To hear, consider, and act upon the modifications to the Bird Gardens Advisory Committee. Motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Chris, Kevin, second?
Second.
All right, thank you. So the item is now before us. Anything changed besides the terms and the description of the staggering?
did
And the
anything
charge?
change in the charge? No. Well, I included vice president, or vice chair. It's in there. And that is, the terms are staggered, and there's a vice chair, and that's it.
Just those two items?
Yes.
As per this document?
Yes.
Got it.
So those are the items that are bold on this.
Yes. Including the bold comma.
It's good.
Uh-huh.
Any further discussion from the board?
No.
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you.
You ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
And
you.
Again,
Thanks, Laura.
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right, next up, item 11, to hear, consider, and act upon modifications to the H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse Building Committee charge. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right, and I had brought this forward based on discussion, both at the Board of Finance and RTM level. There seemed to be some concern or confusion over what was focused on the charge and what was in it. I know at this board, and I think because we talked to the building committee members, we were perhaps more clear on that than other folks were. But in going back, reading the charge, I realized that there perhaps was some lack of clarity, and with your permission, I'd like to propose a change to it, an addition, in fact, The second paragraph says the HSRBC shall be guided by the 2008 Smith-Richardson Clubhouse feasibility study and the H. Smith-Richardson Golf Course 10-year master improvement and financial plan, the Town Facilities Commission, and their 2014 recommendation, the Golf Commission, and the Parks Rec Department, the public, including public meetings and in neighborhood concerns. I think with all that, there's certainly a lot of things that can be looked at as part of that. And I think that as we all talked, and I think as we talked at this board, that we're really focused on the mission of the golf course and supporting that. So after this paragraph, what I would propose and make a motion to amend that we insert the following. In the current economic climate, it is the direction of the Board of Selectmen that the committee focus on those functions and components that are in direct support of the golf mission. All other recreational activities or functions should be considered as future options.
I'll second that.
What I was trying to do there is basically, there were a number of things from paddle tennis to other things that I think perhaps should be considered so that we, in essence, allow for future space or compatibility, but they're not things that we necessarily want to fund today as part of this.
I think when we were doing this, we talked about keep an eye towards maximizing potential revenue down the road. But I understand right now we're drifting off into two separate worlds here. One, the main focus, the reason why the committee's getting together is to rehab and address the golf clubhouse. The second portion of that is the eye towards the future, which would be how can we bring in more revenue to this facility on a year-round basis. And that's where the ice skating rink and the paddle tennis courts come into play, because you want to get more people there and utilize that asset year-round if we can. It'd certainly be more attractive to a vendor in the long run. But for the mission and the Smith-Richardson Clubhouse Building Committee, their main objective should be to square away the clubhouse first and foremost with an eye towards the stuff I spoke about earlier.
Yep, no, I think you articulated that very well, and that's what you captured there is the conversation that we had when we went through this. But I'm not sure that conversation necessarily carried to the other boards. So I think that certainly taking a facility like this, and as you mentioned, getting more than 6 months or 7 months of activity out of it is good. The question is, in this current economic climate with what we're looking at, how do we make sure we focus on the things that the golf mission that gives us the biggest payback right now, and then for the other items, we can plan those in over time. So if we want to add an ice skating rink component, we want to add a paddle tennis component, if we want to add a cross-country skiing component, those are all things that can be added. And I think that it's important that the building committee look to make those, for lack of a better term, plug compatible over time. So whatever foundation work we can do. But I think that the concern is that we don't want the current project getting out of hand cost-wise. So I think you said that very well, Chris.
Yes,
Mr.
clearly.
Kiley, anything to add?
Yes, clearly, I agree with both of your comments. Our discussion was focused around, supporting the golf mission first and foremost today, getting this much-needed building repaired, replaced, whatever that outcome happens to be, and doing what we can within that reasonable first step scope, if you will, to make sure that we get those things done. Other opportunities will and probably should arise down the road, but I think it makes most sense to be conservative today, get the scope of the project completed, the main scope as we've discussed, look at these other things later, and not have these other peripheral conversations or options down the road cloud what we're trying to do today. So I certainly support the clarification of the scope and the project moving forward, and looking at things as need be down the road.
I also think that as we look at non-golf components, those are things that could be driven from the Parks and Rec Commission, that it may not take a facilities building committee to add paddle tennis courts. It may not take a facilities building committee to add a cross-country skiing component to this, to take advantage of that. And there may be some other things that we come up with that are part of that.
Go ahead.
I was actually just thinking that one of the components, and I want to highlight, it would be the parking area. I think that was intended to fall in the mission of the clubhouse because.
Yes.
But not the paddle tennis. So I don't mean to specifically say just the clubhouse, but, we're going to have to do the parking as well. If that comes up in the course of reshaping an entrance design or adding more spaces to accommodate what we anticipate more golfers, that would certainly fall under the clubhouse building committee.
Yeah, I think that's what we mean by supportive golf. At least that was my intent, that would be part of that. And
Right.
the idea that have them looking at this, be aware of this, so it could be plug compatible, so you design the parking lot
Right.
so that it allows for that to be added down in the future.
Right.
Absolutely. I concur. I think the sentiment of this board, and certainly my thought, is to make sure that we do those necessary things, whether they're parking related or entrance related, to fully support the golf mission as it relates to the building first and foremost.
Any further discussion?
No.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we're back to the board. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the item as amended is before us. Any further discussion? I think we had the overall motion first and seconded, so I
Yes,
think
we
we
did.
just voted on that. All in favor of the item as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And Sheila, if you want, I can hand that to you, and think if you can read my scribble, that will help with that. All right, next up is the Strategic Plan Committee to hear an update from our Strategic Plan Committee. Mr. Wynn, if you'd come up and fill us in on how you're doing.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you to the board for inviting us back for our second quarterly update. I submitted an advance package. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. How about I walk us through it, and then if there's questions afterwards, we can come back and ask questions. Although if there's a pressing question in the middle of things, certainly let's stop and address that. So page 1 basically lays out the topics, a little bit of introduction, work we've done since the last update, 2 subpoints there, looking at the RFP status and the other activities we've completed. Coming from one of those activities, there's a perspective that I've tried to illustrate on chart about issues, opportunities, trade-offs, plan next steps, and then questions as we get to the end. So moving to page 2. The request for proposal status, we leveraged the research that we did with RFPs, strategic plans, in finalizing the RFP and issued it in mid-October. We managed that process through town procurement to make sure we stayed in compliance with town standards and methods. We received back 8 proposals. The firms are enumerated below. Each of the responses had very interesting elements, including approaches and techniques, questions that we need to think about. As you can see, there's firms from Connecticut, there's firms from other states. Several of the firms have national prominence and recognition. So I think that's consistent with the suggestions and guidance that we received at our quarterly update regarding looking for local thinking, but looking for thinking from broader areas than just Fairfield County. And I think we're going to achieve the best of both of those balances when we ultimately select a provider, based upon what I've seen. Moving over to the next page. What we're going to do is review each of the proposals in detail and evaluate those proposals using the criteria established in the RFP, perform other due diligence, such as reviewing sample plans, reference checks, other discussions, as the case might be. Real objective is to narrow the 8 providers to a handful. We're really pretty narrow. We're actually conducting an oral review with one of the providers right now upstairs that I stepped out of. But basically, we're going to narrow the providers based upon their expertise and experience, what we see in approaches and techniques, to get down to a subset and interview 2 or 3 of those firms and then make a selection from there. All aspects of the RFP requirements, I think we're going to be easily able to be achieved, including extensive community input, leveraging many different approaches and techniques, a structured SWOT assessment, identification and crafting of strategic options and trade-offs, and then a detailed implementation plan. The target is to start the work in early 2018. General time frame is to complete the plan within about a 1-year time frame. We recognize that speed is important, but thoroughness and comprehensiveness is also important. So we're going to really work hard to get the best balance of both of those and leverage the skills and experience of the providers to help us get there. So before I move to the next page, the balance is one of the questions that is a little bit of a challenge. So we presented to the Board of Finance last week, or before Thanksgiving, I believe. Mr. Tetra was there. Some of the comments on the next page kind of shows the balance of lean left, lean right, different perspectives. Use a consultant, do it ourselves. Focus on a shorter-term time frame, focus on a longer-term time frame. So I tried to illustrate that in the next chart. I'm sorry, it's two charts from there. So let's jump to that chart, and then, I'm sorry, I'm confusing everyone. Let's go to the next page. Page supplemental work completed to date.
Oh, sorry.
So in addition to the RFP and getting the proposals back, what we've done is continued our monthly meetings. We've updated the strategic plan webpage. We've drafted a communication strategy that we're going to begin to implement. We're maintaining awareness of issues in this area, town, region, state, that impact the strategic planning process to make sure we're able to brief the provider when we get them on board. Things like population trends, census trends, economic development activities, Board of Education initiatives, infrastructure changes, state and town budget, financial trends, and other topics and issues that we see coming up. So, as I mentioned, we provided an update to the Board of Finance a few weeks ago. That update was really just to tell them, we've been fielded, we have a team, we have a charge, we're moving forward. I didn't get into as much of this detail because some of that had not yet happened 2.5 weeks ago when we met with them. We did get some feedback that I detected from listening to the members of the Board of Finance. So that's what we have on the next page, really, that I'm pretty much illustrating. I know there's a lot of information on this page. Allow me to debrief it for you. Look at the picture in the middle. It's a puzzle. It's what you typically get, a jigsaw puzzle. But when you work with a jigsaw puzzle, you have the picture from the box that you kind of work from. We don't have that. Here we have a way to manage a lot of different issues, town issues, state issues, federal issues, impact on services, impact on the economy, impact on taxation. And there's a lot of different puzzle pieces that are going to be moving around that we're going to have to maintain awareness of and address as we go through this. There's many, every point that we show around the outside of this circle kind of deals with the issue of what are the opportunities and trade-offs, and what are the different perspectives and ideas. And, some of the points that I illustrate here are really quotes or impressions that were left with me from that Board of Finance meeting, and I think it's borne out if you went back to look at the video of that and the questions that I received afterwards. No sacred cows, everything on the table. We should look out 30 years but be actionable, which to me implies a shorter-term plan versus a 30-year plan, so that's a balance.
Yeah, and I would argue that 30 years is a tad much to look out in some document like this. I mean, as you get out much past 10 to 15 years, and it gets really tough to predict what's going on.
There's too many variables, I fully agree.
And I'm not, and again, we're really looking to you, or your committee, I guess, to, as much as you get feedback from everybody. I think sometimes that feedback is based on experience where they've been involved in this type of thing, and sometimes that's based on experience where they haven't been involved in putting some of this together. So I think you've got to use some discretion in how to do that. And certainly a 30-year guideline, I think, is a bit much.
I fully agree. I think having a plan that would give us shorter-term steps, medium-term steps, longer-term steps, realizing those longer-term steps, if they go out too far, you're less precise in your planning assumptions and what you likely could achieve because of the impact of everything, taxation, business interruption, transition, changes in population and trends, and just too many things to really plan that far out. I fully agree. I fully agree. So some of the other points, we need to be able to leverage what similar towns that are as similar to Fairfield as we can, but we need to be looking for some other things. We need to be looking for trade-offs and things that we're going to accept regarding town assets. What are the assets the town have that we need to leverage? What do we have that we need to change? And I heard some discussion last evening, and I heard some discussion when I came in this evening about the golf course and how we need to change that. What are the trade-offs? What are the costs? What are the implications? Those are all the same discussions we have regarding planning regarding this. So, should do it ourselves. We should use a consultant, and there's pluses and minuses on all of those. All of these points I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to illustrate there are many different viewpoints, and there's many trade-offs with these, and we're going to try our best to balance, make sure we're considerate of all the implications and all the different viewpoints, but try and get us to develop a plan that is most actionable and impactful for the town.
I think that's great, and I think even down to using a consultant or not, certainly if your team was full-time employees of our town, then what we might suggest is, no, we'll use you guys, or we'll go out and find 4 or 5 others that have done strategic plans before and get them in a room and do this. I think with the fact that you're volunteering your time, and thank you again for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That having a consultant can provide the framework and structure, especially as you're meeting 1 or 2 times a month, to keep things moving before that. And I think that where I've seen projects with consultants work is not that they do the work, but they provide the structure, giving your direction to make sure things get done. Everything from setting up the social media, to setting up the website pieces, to setting up the public meetings, and there's a facilitator to make sure that the discussions all move us forward, and we don't get caught.
I absolutely, fully agree, and even greater benefit, in my opinion, in a town that has many different viewpoints is they can be objective, and they can help you understand the implications and trade-offs of different topics and different decisions, and do it from, they're not living in the community, they're trying to provide their professional expertise and what they've seen in other communities that has worked.
Well, see, I think that's key. My most recent experience with a consultant was a group of, there were about 20 of us on the committee. We got together once or twice a month to work on this, but when questions came up about data, what is the support for this, get the facts, what is happening elsewhere, the consultant was able to go get that and bring that back to us. So we could ask the questions, they could get the answers, and we could make the decisions.
Right. And in my research, the best practices or benchmarking research we did notice some communities that did it themselves.
Right.
I didn't get into a detailed discussion on how long did it take, how many members, how detailed did you go. They were relatively recent, so I didn't have the opportunity to say to them, wow, you did it yourself. How's it going? I didn't get that opportunity because it was too new to really evaluate. I might go back in 5 years and ask them that question. You did it yourself? How's it working out for you? So we'll see.
Well, and there also might be, I would think, that it's one thing if we're going through this for the first time. We're literally building this from the ground up. If it's 5 years from now and we're updating it, we might be able to do it ourselves at that point with a little more structure because we've got the framework for how we did this.
Yes.
Perhaps not, but that might be a better case for saying, let's do it ourselves, or do it with minimal outside help on that. But I think for right now, I strongly encourage you to, as you're doing, go forward with a consultant. I think that makes a whole lot of sense for a whole lot of ways.
Right. Okay. So our plan next steps, to move over to the next page. Complete the selection process and award the project. We hope to do that by January. Field the consulting team. My objective really would be by the end of January, have them through our contracting process, make sure that we work with town purchasing to adhere to town standards and requirements to get us moving as quickly as I can in the new year. Advanced community engagement beginning in late February or March, which would include either workshops or brochures, and we'll work all of that out with the consulting providers. Each of them had different, some similar, some different ideas and suggestions on how to effectively accomplish that. General committee work, your committee is going to continue our regular meeting, plan our 2018 schedule, continue participation in project management and execution, stay abreast of current events as I described, and then respond to other town boards and committees to update them, as we did with the Board of Finance. I would be happy to go meet with the RTM and anybody else, just to tell them who we are, what we're trying to do, that sort of thing. So with that, I'll move to page 8. Questions. We don't have to focus on these questions, so focus on any questions that you have.
Have you had any contact? I know the RTM just reformed.
Right.
Have you had any contact with the RTM?
I have not yet, no.
Could I ask you to reach out to the moderator?
Sure.
To see if-
The new moderator was just elected.
Correct.
Okay, yes, I will do so.
All right, if you have any trouble with that contact, let me
I
know
will.
and we'll get that done.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen,
John, thanks for a thorough and complete report. It looks like, in my view, things are happening faster than I anticipated, so the committee must be working really well together right now. So I'm excited to see who you guys select to be your consultant moving forward, and look forward to your next update. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you very much for all your hard work to date and the work ahead of you. There's certainly a lot to be done. And I completely agree about the looking outside, you know, not just outside our town, but outside our state for different ideas, different benchmarks. And from my perspective, having that clear viewpoint from a qualified consulting group who has done work like this either locally or across the country is a fresh voice that we should hear. And I fully support that. I always have, both A, the project, and B, taking that outside view so that we could bring those thoughts into our town and then incorporate them into what we're doing here, how we're doing it, how we can be better, and how we can move forward over the next 5, 10, or 20 years. So I certainly support that. This is a great chart with all the comments and views like that. And I read all these comments, and they all make sense. I've heard most of them. I've probably said most of them myself over the years. And they all kind of ring together, and they all kind of bring me to, a comprehensive, we want to be actionable, right? Like you said, we want to have something that we can definitely implement that makes sense, that's not over the top, that we can put in place, but we also need to build in a balanced amount of flexibility, right? Flexible in the short term. We know we would love to do all these things, but we know we can do this many, and then we can get to those. And then the medium and the long term, as you mentioned, and as long as we have that built-in responsibility or flexibility with all this information and the expertise, it sounds like we're on a really positive path here. And thank you again for all the work. Just one quick question on the. And I know you haven't gone through the process yet, but you have the 8 firms here, and they look like they're mainly consulting firms or parts of financial or accounting firms. Are all of the firms that we've looked at so far, have they specifically done a project equivalent to this? Was that one of the requirements to get them onto the long list, or are they kind of on the periphery of some of that?
The ones that we are looking at most intensely have all done strategic plans of a variety of kinds. Several of the firms had background and descriptions that didn't fully commit me to the belief that they had done a strategic plan for a town of this size,
right,
at our state of where we are, where we want to try and go, how do we want to try and get there.
Right.
So those fell to the less likely ones for us to consider. The ones at the top of the list all have done strategic plans.
And that was the answer to my question. So these 8 all fall in that first bucket, if you will?
No. These are, we received 8 responses back.
So
I would
8
say 3 to 4 of them are
in that top bucket.
In that top bucket,
Okay.
several of the others less so.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Again, thank you, and appreciate the updates, and again, we can plan for next quarter's update to kind of fit in
I'll work with
this.
Kathleen whenever you need me to come back. Doesn't have to be quarterly if you want to hear about it more.
A couple thoughts in terms of one of the things I think I'd like to see back for this board when it's, as soon as it's appropriate. I was about to say sooner rather than later, but I don't mean to rush it. As soon as it's appropriate, because as you pointed out earlier, I think the guideline is to get it right. There isn't a critical drop-dead date to get it wrong by. We need to get it right. So please, from my perspective, let's take the time we need to do this right. I'm comfortable with the timing you have, but if it took a bit longer than that, I'd be comfortable with that if that's what it takes to get it right.
But realize, we're here today in December. It's not going to be, I'm going to come back in December and drop a plan on your desk.
Yep.
I'm going to make sure that you're all involved, updated, participate as we go forward with each aspect of it. And when we have the plan laid out for the full year, I probably will submit that to you and discuss that with you. We would like our community engagement process. We can talk about that. Strategic options. These are the major milestones in the plan, and they will happen over the course of several months each.
Good. And part of what I'm looking for at some point is kind of a list of the areas that the plan will cover or be included. Is it housing? Is it seniors? Is it some of the other strategic issues that are facing the town based on what other strategic plans have covered? So we get a sense or feeling of what we should be looking forward to. It may not be telling us whether we need a new elementary school or not that level, that type of thing.
Right.
But from a broader sense, what to expect on that side. So I think that would be good. And then the other piece, and I think Mr. Kiley mentioned it, was as you go through and look at other plans, anything relating to benchmarks, so we can measure ourselves going forward in terms of so we know we're making progress in some of the different areas. But also, how do we measure ourselves in terms of where we stand? And perhaps CCM or some other groups like that might be helpful, or perhaps one of the universities, their business schools might be helpful in doing some research for you. We're doing some legwork on getting that. But I think if we can get some target.
Benchmarks typically, from my experience, are quantitative measures evaluating a relatively short-term future against historical performance. Being that we're doing a strategic plan that's looking at a little bit further than that, the real use of hard quantitative benchmarks might be a challenge. Best practices or techniques or approaches might be something else to consider, which are typically more qualitative in approach rather than hardcore quantitative metrics.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, but it might be the case where it's like, in the short term, here's some numbers.
Yep.
In the longer term, here's the types of criteria that you should look at. Not the numbers, but just the types of criteria.
Yep.
And second, by the way, in our studies, we found 4 other towns or 5 other towns or a CCM-like organization that is actually doing some of this tracking. And we should stay in touch with those to see where that develops and goes. There aren't a lot of numbers out there right now, a lot of benchmarks or ratios right now.
Right.
One of the problems in Connecticut is we have too many small towns. You know, if you have a town of 1,500 people, it's hard to sit here and worry about benchmarks because you got to benchmark yourself against other 1,500 person towns.
Right.
We're kind of a tweener. We're not a big city, but we're not a 10,000 resident suburban community
Right.
either. So I'm looking for, if possible, some of that guidance coming back. And if you can't be specific, that's fine. It's kind of like, here's the people doing it. Keep an eye on them.
Right, okay. We'll do what we can.
Any other comments from the board?
Have you had lots of, I'm going to say, walk-in participation at your meetings?
We've had a handful of participants at the meetings, and that's a good segue. We have our website up. We have, using the town's tools and resources, the ability for residents to click on community feedback. A web form will come up, and you can provide input. And
But-
as elected officials, great. As residents, provide that input as well.
What is the website address?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. It is in the other slides that we reviewed, but if you just search it on a town website, strategic planning,
No, it's right
it'll
here.
bring it up.
Is it there?
Well, it says- yeah, fairfieldct.org.
All right, okay, so there it is.
/SPC.
Yep.
So that's fairfieldct.org
SPC.
/SPC for Strategic Plan Committee.
Right.
Very good.
So have they actually submitted comments yet? Have we gotten that point?
I have
yet?
not gotten anyone to submit comments. I have tested it personally, so I know that it works.
Fantastic. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you, John.
Anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up, from the tax collector, to consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $15,348.07. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion?
A second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in
No.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then I would, there was a legal issue and a pending litigation item that came up, and I would ask the indulgence of the board that we move into private executive session for discussing that pending litigation update. It needs 2/3 of our vote to add it to the agenda, and then 2/3 to go into private executive session, so we'll take 2 votes.
Okay.
First vote would be add that item to our agenda. May I have a motion to accept? A second?
Can we have an indication of what the case is we're going into executive session for?
Davitt, D-A-V-I-T versus Town of Fairfield et al.
Okay.
Regarding a bicycle accident on Morehouse Avenue.
Okay,
Nice.
all right. So that adds it to the, all in favor?
Aye.
It is now on the agenda. May I have a motion to go into private executive session?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we're now moving into private executive session. Jerry, you got that? Let us know, Jerry. All right, thank you. May I have a motion to come back into public session?
Make a motion.
A second.
Second.
All right, we're back in public session. While in private executive session, no motions were made and no votes were taken. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business that shall properly come before this meeting. Any other business?
I'd like to thank everybody who put together the Christmas tree lighting last Friday night. It was fantastic. I know my family and other families had a really great time, and I think it's one of the best events. I say it every year. Fairfield does. So thank you to all who worked behind the scenes to make such a great night.
Yep. Just to reinforce what you said, I hear that Santa thought it was so great, he even showed up early.
Yeah, he did show up a little early.
All right. Next up is adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.